Hello and welcome to a sophisticated session from three of your industry's colleagues. We're talking talent management, developing your leadership team. Now, this group stretched the bounds of our discussion. Get ready to endeavor into smart talk on leadership.
And obviously we have to work on ourselves before we can work on others. And, I look at where I spend my time, and I spend quite a bit of time each month in training and, how do I become that better leader? And I've often told my techs and stuff is that when I was working in the shop, yes, I had headphones on most of the time. I wasn't listening to music. I was either listening to podcasts, how to be a better husband, how to be a better dad, how to be a better business owner. It was all educational stuff that I listened to.
Welcome, automotive aftermarketers, to a Remarkable Results Radio Town Hall Academy. Listen to learn just one thing from today's episode on your journey to remarkable results.
Hey, Carm Capriato here, thanking Jasper Engines and Transmissions for their support of the Academy. Your customer's vehicle continues to age, and the likelihood that their engine or transmission is going to wear out is a distinct possibility. Now, when that day comes, Jasper will be the name to remember. Jasper's remanufactured products cost considerably less than a new vehicle, so it just makes sense to choose Jasper. Go to jasperengines.com for more information. Hey, remember why you're engaged with the Aftermarket's premier podcast? Now, one reason is that we are providing genuine value for your time spent. No fluff inside these important stories and lessons. Now, every time we turn on the mic, we think of your valuable time and the need to learn one new thing, so you maintain your learning curve. Please take a surf on the website where the content is cataloged in many ways so you can find special areas of interest that will keep your training commitment high. Hey, today we're talking talent management, developing your leadership team, and my Academy panel includes Judi Haglin from Haglin Automotive in Boulder, Colorado, Mark Roberts, Schertz Automotive, Schertz, Texas, and Tom Palermo, Preferred Automotive Specialist in Philadelphia, PA. Hey, you'll find this episode going places you didn't expect. This group brought their A game and shared not only how to develop your people into leaders, but their ongoing trek to be a better leader. Find the talking points already done for you and links to my guests' previous episodes at remarkableresults.biz/A122. Now let me quote my friend, Dr. John Pesante. As we think about the role of leadership, let us view through the lens of duty. It's the duty of the leader to set the example in courage, character, integrity, and being a positive influence on the organization. Thanks for that, John. Now listen, with an open mind and an open lens. Well, team, glad to have you here. We're going to talk about leadership today. We talk about leadership a lot, but, the talent management, your job as the CEO of your organizations, you really have a huge responsibility in it. And, one of the things that you brought up to me, Tom, was, hey, listen, it really kind of starts in the interview if you want to set up a leadership development campaign. So what do you mean by that?
It's interesting because all of us have been in this industry for a long time, and I'm sure we've found people that we hired and kind of grew into positions that they're in currently. They probably started off way far down the line. Somewhere in that process of talking to that person, we've seen a spark of something in them that said to us, "Hey, I'm going to pose these questions to them. I'm going to see how they answer them. I'm going to ask them for their input." Have them ask me questions to see where they're coming from. And when you can find an employee that kind of gels with you well and is able to answer those questions and really interact with you, you see you have somebody who has the potential to be in some form of a leadership capability. Doesn't have to be management. You can be a leader and not be in a management role. But I really think it all stems from a good start. When you interview somebody, you should be looking at that person like they could very possibly be the next key critical guy to your operation, and approach them accordingly.
Mark, you have a principle of developing leaders. Can you share it with us?
Well, I think that principle is not, I have to say I stole it from I ripped it off, as Frank would say.
Yeah, R&D.
R&D.
R&D. We should share the R&D principle. Go ahead.
Rip off and duplicate. So, it was interesting when I came across this. It's a 70-20-10 principle, and it's really about 70% of your learning happens through experience, such as your daily task. And then 20% is through conversations with other people, such as coaching and stuff. And then 10% is through traditional training programs. So really, when you look at that and you sum all that up, leadership really happens mostly through experience. And so I can think about the leadership development I've done in my shop and with my partners, John and David. And I would love to think that I was some kind of guru and I had all this stuff down. I think mine happened more by accident. I didn't really know any better. And I just knew I wanted someone else to fulfill the roles that I was doing. And, so it was just constantly handing off stuff to them.
Please take some credit for this fact. And let me say that I believe you had great stock in those two guys.
I did. Those guys were exceptional. And I think about, I just kept handing stuff off to them and say, hey, do this. So I didn't just dump a whole bunch of stuff on them. And then as I think back, John officed with me for a full year. When we were in our other location, we were just so cramped for space. We were growing. We had a collision operation there. We just didn't have any space, and we hired some more people on the front counter. And so said, we don't have any place for you to go. So you know what? You just come in my office. We'll rearrange the desk and we'll just office together. And so, he heard every conversation. He heard every phone call. He heard everything, and just operated beside me for at least a year. And it was probably longer than that. Is
that the leadership skill called osmosis?
Well, I think that's some of it. I think when I think about it does, because when I think about the leadership lessons that I learned, I worked for a guy for 10 years, and I won't necessarily say that he taught me all this stuff by actually teaching me. It was just, I watched him and just looked at how he operated and how he did stuff. And that's how, we didn't have these sit down lessons or book studies or anything like that. And I just watched him and made notes.
So you, I think, can really agree with that, Judi, the fact that you just want someone to observe.
Right. It's in our shop, it's kind of lead by example, and you want to walk the talk. But that's how you create that culture in your shop, is by leading and doing it the right way and showing them the way on every little detail or the big picture stuff. You have to really walk the talk every single day.
That's that leading from the front kind of mentality, and that's critical, because when your employees see that you're willing to do exactly what you expect of them, the respect level goes through the roof. And if they know that you're capable of doing it, they know that you know what to expect of them. You know how long things should take. You know what's entailed in things that you delegate to them. So it keeps them kind of between the inner lane, so to speak, and off the sides there. But it also gives them a sense that, hey, I'm not alone. There's somebody here who will jump right in with me if they need to be, not micromanage or hold my hand through it, but actually get in there with me if they have to and get dirty and do what has to get done to get the job done. It sounds like that's right in your wheelhouse, Judi.
Yes, I think so. One of the ways that there's actually a couple ways that we can do that is one is the next step. Give them as you're working with them side by side, as you're showing them what's the next step for them to do, and what is that they can actually take on their own and make it their own, and you pass that responsibility on to them. I.e., if the floor is dirty and I go back and I'm pushing the broom, you make some kind of a comment, or you have a conversation to whoever's bay you're in and say, hey, you know what, I took care of this for you. Here's the broom. Where do you normally keep it? Same thing with the mop bucket. Is it clean today? Can I clean it for you? And make them aware that you've noticed. There's a broken window theory that we talk about is when you go by a building and there's one broken window, not a big deal. go by the next day or the next week and there's 2 or 3 broken windows, the next thing you know, you see somebody else throwing a rock at it or somebody has graffiti. It becomes the norm. So that leading, as you say, from the front or by example, fix that broken window immediately so that everybody knows that you've seen it, you've acknowledged it, and it's just not acceptable.
It's amazing on this entire catalog of Remarkable Results Radio, over 550 episodes, 4 years in, that one of the founding principles of great leadership and running great companies is culture. And it seems that if you've got your culture and your values in place, Judi, you can leap and teach leadership from that. Is that what you guys are doing?
Yes, we've kind of coined it the Haglin way, and we have several core values and there's like 8 or 9 that we talk about. We have weekly meetings every Friday. We buy lunch and we have either a training session. We talk about the values, talk about what went well, what do we need to work on as a team. And the core values, basically it says one of them is everything speaks, based on Disney. And that means that if there's a piece of trash, you pick it up. If it's dirty, if you walk by the customer within 5 feet, you say hello and greet them and make sure that, everything's great. But when you create those core values, what you're really doing is creating comments and statements and a structure that changes behaviors for your employees. And it's the behaviors that you want. So when you create those core values or those comments or the inner structures, look at how are you looking at changing behavior. If you've got a dirty shop or if you have a customer service issue, look at what can you put in that will change the behaviors, which then after everybody starts to adopt those behaviors and changes, then you have culture. And what I'd like to throw out is if you don't have a very good culture, the leaders in the shop, you need to do what? We need to be looking in the mirror for sure. Because that's 100%. That's what's going to change it.
Okay, your customer's engine or transmission has failed, but now is not the time for them to trade their vehicle. Not without a working engine or transmission. Besides, would they have kept their vehicle another 3 to 5 years if their engine or transmission had not let them down? Well, if you answered yes, then Jasper Engines and Transmissions is your choice to give your customer's vehicle new life and many thousands of miles of enjoyable driving performance. When considering the high cost of a new or newer used vehicle, there's a pretty good case to be made for your customers to replace a drivetrain component that has failed or is delivering poor performance, rather than trading their car, truck, van, or SUV. Install a quality remanufactured Jasper product for less than your customer would have to invest in a different vehicle. Go to jasperengines.com to learn more about the money-saving value of Jasper. I'm inspired by what you just said, and here's what came to my mind. Have any of you ever just sat down with your team and either privately or in an open forum and said to an individual who does not have a leadership role, but then asked them, do you feel that you're a leader here in our business? Have you ever done that?
Absolutely. You have to do that with all your employees, because really what you want is a lot of people out there that are willing to do what Judi was saying. You see something, if you see a piece of trash, pick it up. If you see something's broken, report it, fix it, do whatever you have to do. You want to have these eyes and ears, for lack of a better term, that are out there all moving towards the same goal, which was why I said in the beginning, a leader doesn't necessarily mean management. Okay. A leader could be someone on the shop floor who shows that they really care about the business and about the culture and about the people in the business. And, when you have people like that, just because they're not in a management position doesn't mean they don't have the ability to make decisions. You always have to have an open line of communication. If I have I have 2 people here actually that their entire job is maintenance on the shop, keeping the shop clean, making sure nothing's broken, fixing broken, that whole kind of appearance and, outward visibility kind of thing. I had just yesterday, he came to me, one of the gentlemen came to me and said, I'd like to take this piece of equipment and I want to move it over here and I want to secure this and I want to do this and I want to do that. I said, go for it. Now, if I didn't give him the ability to be able to come to me and make those kind of decisions, and this is somebody who's cleaning up. Somebody on the outside might look at him and say, oh, well, he's just cleaning up. That guy at that point in time was the most important person in this organization. So being a leader doesn't mean being management. You have to have that kind of communication with your employees, because you'll head off so many problems. If you just let the reins loose a little bit and not feel like you have to control every single little thing that happens, you'd be surprised how many people rise to the task, take ownership, and improve your business for you, and then end up, they end up being key critical parts of your operation. And you can always tell somebody's important when they're on vacation and you miss them. That's you've done a good job when somebody goes on vacation and you really, really miss them and you really wish they were there.
So Tom, you mentioned a great point. We do one-on-one meetings with every one of our employees. So I'm assuming that you're doing something like that. And when you do have the one-on-one meetings, it's really what's working really well, what are you doing really well, what's your personal goals, and what's one or two things we can work on over the next week or 2 weeks. So that's that constant communication. Yeah. And one-on-ones, whatever you want to call it. We do a lot of those actually out in the bay for the technicians. It's at the toolbox. How's it going? What do you got? Are we moving forward? And what else can I help you with? Mm-hmm. That's one of the most important questions we ask is how can I help?
Yeah.
And also on Tom's point, that leadership thing, some of your employees are leaders. They may not be the right leader going the right direction. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways we do a behavioral study on our front staff, we do Wonderlic CPPs. And in every interview, we do what we call the bird test. 18 questions kind of does that, shows you kind of what behavior style they have. The DISC test, they're all very familiar. And that way everybody in the shop knows who the other personalities are. And I'm an eagle, so I have a tendency where I can chew anybody up. I have to be very careful. Yeah. Doves are 60% of the population. Okay, yeah. And the feathers come out. Sometimes I'll have peacock feathers or dove feathers out, right. And they go, ooh, pull it back, babe. But the cool part about that is that if everybody knows what everybody's bird is at our shop, because we all know, if there's a dove, you don't go in and pounce. Right. You do it another way. But we also have doves are very good at covert hostility and changing your environment and your culture without you even knowing it, because they're really sweet. Mm-hmm. So knowing your people is so important, and having everybody else understand where everybody's at is so helpful.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, I'd never heard the bird test. I'll have to look at that one. We do DISC profiles, but going back to what Tom talked about, is just allowing them to make decisions. I think that's there's actually a piece coming out in Ratchet Wrench this next month that one of my service writers wrote that was it was very difficult for him because we gave them so much leeway. And he's the guy that came up with the videos that we produce. He came up with the ideas, and it was always just, hey, that's a great idea, do it. That's your baby. And then it was frustrating for him because he would come with questions, and I'm like, that's your baby. You make the decision and do it. And he says, I'm just not used to being able to make decisions without having to get them cleared through management. And so he actually wrote a whole piece and submitted to I didn't even know he wrote it, just kind of about the way we operate. And I've always kind of used the Jesus principle of, Jesus never answered questions, or he answered a question with a question. And so that was very frustrating for them. Mm-hmm. Is that, so when John first came to me, he says, it just pisses me off because you never answer my questions, and I just told him, I said, well, John, I said, if I answer your questions, that's too easy. You'll never grow. So I want you to make the decision. And so then he, took that same principle and applied it to one of his employees. Well, that employee that service writer was upset, and he never answers my questions. I'm like, why wouldn't either? Because that's how you're going to grow. You know the answer. You're just afraid to go execute. And we give you the leeway to execute. I will never get upset for you making a decision. I will be more upset if you don't make a decision. If I don't like your decision, yeah, we'll talk about it. But, you made the decision. So
I love what he just said. And I want to ask both Judi and Tom. He said he owned it. So you don't have to be a leader to have someone in your shop own something. Can you give us an example of ownership from people on your team?
I would use the example of what I had with that gentleman yesterday who saw an issue, saw a problem, and it was affecting everybody in the shop. He decided to take the reins and say, "Hey, this is what I want to do. What do you think?" And I said, "Hey, listen, it's your baby. This is your wheelhouse. I'll gladly help you if you want, but if it's gonna help you do your job better and it's gonna help the productivity of the shop, sounds like you've already made the decision for yourself. You don't need me to tell you to go ahead and do it." So and these things happen every day. Sometimes you don't even realize they're happening when they're happening. And the good part is when you stop getting asked all those questions, that's you have either done one of two things. You've either got really good leaders, or they're not telling you stuff. So that's where Judi's the dove. That's where you want to make sure there's no, kind of like passive aggressive nonsense going on. And generally you've kind of feathered that out, no pun intended, by in your interview process and your interactions with those employees. You're not going to keep somebody around who you think is going to be subversive. That's not going to happen. So I think these things happen every day, whether it's somebody walking by something and picking them up, picking up trash, whether it's guys putting shop tools back the way they're supposed to be put back, whether it's people who come up with ideas about securing equipment or securing tools or hey, I really think, it's going to take me this long to do this job. Can I knock this? I see this one's next on my list. Can I knock this one out first and then go ahead and do it? That kind of collaboration is really what drives productivity. That, in my opinion, that's my opinion.
So, Carm, you asked for an example, and one of our core values is that it's family. You make it feel like home, and my front service writer has taken that upon herself. Last year, she goes, "You know what? We need an umbrella out where the little areas so that they're not sitting in the sun." Okay, great. You know what? I want to put plants by the front so that they're perennials. They come up every year so that we don't have to plant them every year, and it makes that little wall look better. And then this year we said, I've got a bird feeder. I've got the umbrella. We've got our planters, which we've always had. And she has truly made that outside appearance as well as the inside, because she's very, very picky about this space needs to stay clear. This needs to be good. Everything's kind of in its place. So it's always looking crisp and clean when anybody comes in. And that she's taken all on her own. One of the things is Mark was talking that brought to mind was there's a book, Make the Noise Go Away by Larry Linney. And if you have that second in command or anybody else, it's really that communicating up. And they tell you, hey, you know what? Laura's an example of, hey, I want to buy the umbrella. I said, great, take the card, go for it. What's that communication up? Back to then that they're on the right track and they're going the right direction. And you're saying, you know what? I love that idea. It looks great. But you have to make sure that you give positive feedback. When we came back from our vacation last week, the plants she planted beforehand, I looked at them and went, ooh, are they ever going to go? When I came back and the pansies are like going crazy. Mm-hmm. So it's that positive feedback as well to keep everybody going on the same track. Judi, to your point, we just did a move about a year ago. So we moved from one location that was small to a building that's about 3 times the size. So we had a lot of work to do. The place needed a ton of repairs. It was not well taken care of before we got here. But so we were working on the building, and my dad and I are here, figuring out what we're going to do, doing the big stuff. But just like what Judi was saying, our service manager, we let her basically design, with a little input from us. There were a few things we wanted to do, but we stayed out of it for the most part. Design our customer waiting area, and she did a fantastic job. And you know what the funny part is? She took and takes such ownership in it that we never have to worry about it. I never have to worry about whether the flowers look good, because she did the same thing, Judi. It's funny. You're saying that's what brought it to my mind. The flowers look good. The floors are always clean. The rugs are vacuumed. Everything's in its place. The cookies are always stocked. The coffee's ready to go. All that stuff. Never, ever, ever have to worry about it. We did the same thing in the back with our service director. Hey, listen, here's how we would like to see vehicles flow in and out of the shop.
But tell me what you need. What do you think? And run with it, and we'll do it. And we'll let you kind of design your own setup. Our productivity skyrocketed because we moved to a larger location, but also because we let the person who has to work in that every single day have input and really make it their own. And because they made it their own, they take more ownership of it, and it becomes their baby. I tell my people, when I get out of the car every day, I put my foot on the ground. The first thing I do is I think I have 25 people working here. That means I have 25 employees to take care of and 25 families to take care of. The decisions I make and the decisions that other people make affect all those families. So we all need to work together. I can't do everything by myself. Neither can they. We have to work as a team. And the only way you're going to work as a team is if you have the right people in the right place doing the right thing, making the right decisions.
As Tom was talking, then actually as one of your viewers has talked about the management and making the decision that way, what Tom probably has at his shop, and it's one thing that we have as well, it's that blameless problem-solving. And those are three very powerful words when you put them together. It means that if someone comes up and says, I broke blah, whatever it is, it's okay. It's part of doing business. But tell me before I need it the next time so that I'm not scrambling. But it's problem solving, but not putting blame on it. There are things that go wrong every single day. I would love to have a day that goes flawlessly. But if you rant and you rave and you say it's not my way or it's not this, then you're not creating that culture where everybody can share and be able to take ownership and feel safe and have a safe environment and work that way. And that's how you build the team.
Yeah, I think when you look at one of Matt's comment and stuff about mistakes and stuff, I think that's just part of learning, is that you got to allow them to make mistakes. I can tell you that, I've made plenty of mistakes, and I can look back and John has made mistakes, and some of them were expensive mistakes, but they were great lessons to learn. And we look at techs today, I see so many people that you can look in all the different forums and, a tech makes a mistake and they're ready to fire them. And it's, they're going to grow through those mistakes, and hopefully they won't make them again. And we look at our industry, and I thought that was interesting. I was listening to Jim Collins speak at a different conference, and he talked about how everybody's complaining that there's not enough entry-level people coming into the business and stuff. And one of the things that he brought up, he says, well, if you look at the military and you look at all the people that are trying to get in the military, how many people the military turn away, and you go on an aircraft carrier, what's the average age of all those individuals running those and manning the planes and flying the planes? They're young individuals, and it's not that we have a shortage of qualified individuals. We have a shortage of employers that are willing to spend the time and the money to train these individuals. And so that goes back to leadership also, is that, I think we get so afraid that someone's going to make a mistake and, oh my gosh, it's going to cost us some money. And, that's just, I broke more stuff and screwed up more stuff in my lifetime than, so I'm pretty forgiving when it comes to that.
I think that, I think the important lesson to learn from this is that everybody makes mistakes. Listen, Judi and Mark both said, and I will fully admit that I have made some tremendous mistakes, actually comical mistakes in my life, in this business. It happens. That's how you learn. Mistakes aren't necessarily a bad thing. The key to what you want to do when somebody makes a mistake is you want to keep it transparent to the customer. So you can have policies and procedures in place that keep a technician, we'll use an example of a technician making a mistake. You can keep that transparent to the customer, not that you're lying to them, but that you're just making sure that they're not feeling any pain from that mistake. You can communicate it to them. Most people will understand. And Mark's point of young people coming into this industry, we don't want to get too far off in the weeds on this, because I'm sure that you probably had a few podcasts on this already, but we as an industry need to be willing to take these people and train them and teach them the right way to do things. And I have a few millennials working for me who are fantastic. The service manager that I was speaking about earlier, she's a millennial, and she's she fits absolutely zero of the stereotypes that are out there of a millennial. They can do it. You just have to be, at that point, you have to be the leader, and you have to say, we're going to take this person or these, these technicians or whoever it is, and we're going to bring them along into our family, and we're going to have them adapt to our way of thinking. And when they do, they'll be successful. And then you just keep doing it. You just keep doing it. And if you do it right, and if you do it long enough, you will find yourself with a really fantastic group of people. I mean, my employees, they're great people. I love them. They're my family. I mean, they really are family to me. If they have a problem, I have a problem. That's basically the way, the way we look at it. I'm sure Judi and Mark feel the same way about that. I care what happens to my employees, but I care because I'm not sitting on top of a mountain pointing down saying, you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that. I'm letting them make decisions, and I'm letting them have success on their own, so that I don't have the success, they have the success, and that motivates them to have more success. So
Tom, I was going to say, Tom, I'd love to jump in on that, because earlier we're talking about leadership here, and what you're saying is that you're letting them, basically you can take that as, okay, they're running the asylum, and you don't have an asylum, you have a well-oiled machine, right, and you've obviously done something correct to lead them. Mm-hmm. So that goes back to, what is your role in the shop? And if you are constantly in the back turning wrenches or selling service or in the mix in the business versus working on the business, and really having that direction, that clear idea, if you weren't really leading your shop, you'd still be in your old facility.
Right.
So
100%.
There's a job there as owners, mm-hmm, and a responsibility to our employees to do the absolute best we can and lead them where they can take those responsibilities and go from there. So leadership it's a job. I absolutely feel like that is so important, that we understand you're leading the ship. And there are days that the Titanic, I swear there are icebergs out there everywhere. But if you know that where you're headed is where you're going to go, you just ping off the bergs and you just keep moving, because you know where the end is.
Mm-hmm.
But also think when you think about that leadership, and then, when you look at DISC profiles and look at, I can look at my own profile and really understood that really my right-hand guy, really my partner now, John, is much better at leading than I am. And he just, that's just his personality style. So really, once I recognize that, it's, hey, I'm going to let him run with it. We're going to come up with a plan, and then we're going to agree on it. But he's much better at executing that plan than I am. And so that was just something we learned through DISC profile. And I see that Jim had a comment on leadership development and about having a program, and we did that for a little while. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it just, the holidays came and we stopped it, but we were meeting in the morning at 6:30 too, and we were actually using some curriculum at a Life Church. Craig Groeschel out of Life Church has a series, and it was just real quick 20-minute videos, and we would meet for a little while. We would discuss the video and stuff, and it was non-paid, and I was surprised at the people that showed up, and I think that's a fantastic tool to be able to do it. I just get I'm pretty protective of their time, and I don't want them doing anything in the evening. I don't want, shop stuff in the evening. I don't want shop stuff on the weekend. And, it's just like I tell those guys, I want you with your families is really what I want. So it becomes difficult for me to say, hey, we're going to do this thing after hours. I want them home. So I do like the idea of starting early and, having a 30-minute or 40-minute just training session in the morning. I don't know if he does it every week or every 2 weeks, but I did see some really good development out of it. So great tools.
Thank you for all of this. I love where this is going. I really hear and feel your passion, and I really think that our listener, not only today, this weekend, but as we publish this podcast and it's available, the evergreen for anyone to listen anytime, is really going to hit a mark with people. And as I've heard you all really give it up and be so transparent, I'm going to ask you, were you always this good? I may know that answer, because I know how poor I was as a leader in the early days. And so I'm going to ask each of you to comment on this. Take me back to the day that it hit you upside the head that you had to become a better leader because you knew you had to grow a family and a team and a better company. Mark, do you remember the day that it hit you upside the head?
I can't specifically remember the exact day, but it's probably because I wanted to take vacations. I learned I wanted to do that. I can definitely remember some bad leadership days that I had, probably more than all the good leadership days. But really, I think it came down to I never wanted to have a one-man company or two-man company. It was always I wanted something that we could grow. That if I wanted to take vacations, I wasn't going to have to worry, and we would still be making money somehow. So it just wasn't. It wasn't till I was in my 40s. I know that I started learning more leadership, and so I think now, even with John, he has got more leadership training than I ever was exposed to at his age, and so we spend money on it. He's got a coach, and so it does cost money sometimes. It's like I'm not sure I can give him everything that he needs, and I want him hearing it from others too, and so I want him exposed to others. Which brings up a point on networking, is that it's huge, is to go out and network and learn what other leaders are doing. One thing I've learned from your podcast is that there's a lot of very, very smart individuals out there running shops and participating in your podcast, and I'm always just so impressed.
Thank you. Before I go to Judi on that, I don't know why it hit me just a few weeks ago, but I've always believed in this thing about the fly on the wall. So I actually started to talk about it on the show that, the podcast is really like allowing you to be a fly on the wall inside of your colleagues and hear their stories told. And it was always something years ago, I always said, God, I wish I could be a fly on the wall of my competitor down the road in their next employee meeting. Love to know what's going on there. Well, that's what we do here. Judi, remember the day that you became a great leader?
Well, as you said that, I harked back to in my early 20s when I managed McDonald's. When Dana and I first started the shop, I worked McDonald's, paid most of the bills. And after 3 years, I said, okay, I'm done with that. I'm coming to work for Haglin's. And I could get anybody to do anything at McDonald's. And that's, I got to tell you, that was a natural talent that I have. I didn't come into realization of how really good and fine-tuned that really could be till much later on, where I figured out who I was, figured out who my husband was. We learned how to communicate, and we figured out what each other's strengths are. And being a woman in the industry, I'm going to put this out to all the women in the industry. A lot of us women are those leaders behind the technicians that we've married. And I was always afraid that I was going to hurt Dana's feelings. And he said, yeah, I don't care. You are the leader. And if you ask any vendor, they said, yeah, Judy's the one that gets it done. And for the moment for me, when I really realized that I was a true leader, was when with ATI and our all women's 20 group, and we had a dinner, and we were talking, and all of a sudden I said, you know what? I really am the driving force at Haglin Automotive. And everybody stopped. There's 20 women in the room. They stopped and they looked at me and went, it's about time you came out of the closet. Wow. Okay. So I think it was really at that point that I realized that, okay, I am that person. And in this male-dominated industry, that can be a challenging path to take. But that was, for me, that was coming out of the closet, and we joke about that. Dana and I do a lot, because I was always wanting him to be that leader, that manager, and that's not who he is. Dana is, once again, as with Tom, he's an ASE Master Tech Award winner, and we quote him as Jesus in the back. And my tech came into a meeting the other day and says, boss, I need Jesus, and he needs to come to the back now. And we went, okay. And the person I was meeting with said, what does that mean? I said, well, it means that he needs to make magic happen because something broke or something's not working right. He goes back. He's back 5 minutes later. I said, wow, that was very fast. So a miracle? He says, no, they were just not looking correctly.
Yeah, it's amazing. You just go wave your hand over that problem, Dana.
Yes, magic.
I'm moved by all the things that are going on here today, and it inspires me to remind the audience that Mark, Judi, and Tom have done one-on-one episodes with me, and so if you want to hear more from their great wisdom, please run their names. In fact, when you go to the website when this thing is published, you'll have a click and you'll see all their episodes. And then Judi mentions the ATI All Women's 20 group. Well, I had Judi and two others at Apex this past year, and we were in our Apex studio. And I have to tell you, and I told actually Judi this week, I said it's still one of my favorite episodes. We were so into the dynamics of these three great ladies in our industry. So thank you for all of that. Tom, take me back to the day that you said, I think I'm a leader now.
It's funny. I don't remember the exact day. I couldn't put a date on it, but I can remember the situation. I'm out in the shop working on a car. I have a phone, I got somebody on the phone waiting for me. I have a runner asking me where they're supposed to go. I got all this stuff going on, and I'm thinking to myself, what the hell am I doing? Like I gotta delegate this stuff. I gotta develop a process. I gotta find a way to make sure that these things get done, remains transparent to the customer. All they see is a good product being put out by the shop. They're happy. They feel good. Everything's fine. But on the backside, I can't do everything. I have to delegate these tasks. I have to find a structure that works for us and works for our way of doing things that will allow other people to make decisions. And, that was probably, I'm going to say it was probably about 15 to 20 years ago. And it was in the summer because I remember it was hot. That was also an issue. We put AC in the shop not too long after that. But it was that realization that you can't do it all. You have to delegate. And if you want to delegate and be successful, you better have the right people in the right place to do it. Now, it's not like I just woke up one day and became a good leader. I made mistakes. There were times where I handled situations in ways that I probably shouldn't have, but everybody makes mistakes. They only really count if you don't learn from them. So I learned from my mistakes. I remember, at the time the internet wasn't what the internet is now, reading, trying to find books and read and go to, go to classes and all that kind of stuff. I had friends who were in the corporate world and, I would bounce stuff off them just to try to see, not that they have it all figured out, but just to see where everybody is and how it all, and how it all worked. And, we slowly developed our way of doing it, and it's, knock on wood, it's worked pretty well.
Here's some irony of this whole thing. The topic today is talent management, developing your leadership team. And the irony here is you have to become a leader yourself. And I really love the fact that we told this story here near the end. Well, let's go around the room and hit on any kind of topic or any other great advice that you'd love to give to your colleagues and peers inside the industry. Tom, I'll start with you.
I would two things. The first would be lead from the front. Do not let your people think that you're standing on top of a mountain, pointing down to them, telling them to you make sure that they understand that you're willing and able to get involved if need be. That when you do that, you are able to develop a relationship with your employees, a respectful relationship where they feel like they have, there's a camaraderie there that they can communicate with you, which will also help with my second point, which is not to micromanage people. When you micromanage people, you're setting them up. You're setting the leadership training part of this up for failure. You most certainly are. If you micromanage people and you're not willing to kind of take your hands off the reins a little bit and just provide the bumpers so people don't go off the road, you're not going to create leaders. You're just going to create people to come to you with questions and expect, like Mark was saying, waiting for your answer. You can't do that. You cannot micromanage. You have to let people you give them the tools they need to get up there, But, once you feel they're ready to fly, let them go. Stay close to them, monitor them, make sure, you know what's going on, but don't get involved and let them learn. If they make a mistake, let them learn from that mistake, counsel them on what happened, why it happened, and how to have it not happen again. And then, just move forward in that way. It takes a long time. It's not a process that's, a 2-week process. This is really, when you think about it, and I think Judi and Mark would agree with me, this is a lifelong learning process. This is not, they say somebody's a born leader. I don't know. I think everybody has to learn how to be a leader, and every good leader that you talk to is going to tell you that, they're still learning. You never really master your craft at that. I know I certainly haven't. So, and I'm really glad to be part of this, because I've learned from Judi and Mark today. I've picked up a ton of stuff. So thank you too for that. I really, really do appreciate it.
It always happens. Mark, I remember you and I were, was it Vision, and we were doing it, and I think you were taking notes. I mean, everybody seems to be taking notes on what everyone else says. And so, that's another great feeling for me that not only are we teaching the aftermarket, but our panelists are so willing to be, they're perpetual students. If not, you wouldn't be at the top of your craft right now. Judi, I will give you the last word. Mark, I'm going to let you go next.
Okay. Well, I think I would echo Tom's comments about not micromanaging and you've got to delegate. I think, Andy Stanley said it best, is that as your organization grows, the dumber you get. And, because you just don't know everything that happens. But I also believe it, like they both said, is that this is an ongoing for anybody. Leadership training is ongoing, and obviously we have to work on ourselves before we can work on others. And I look at where I spend my time, and I spend quite a bit of time each month in training. And how do I become that better leader? And I've often told my techs and stuff is that when I was working in the shop, yes, I had headphones on most of the time. I wasn't listening to music. I was either listening to podcasts, how to be a better husband, how to be a better dad, how to be a better business owner. It was all educational stuff that I listened to. And, it doesn't stop. And so sometimes a leadership training, you're going to have to put some resources behind it. And that's okay too, is that we've got to be willing to, put some resources, because it's really ultimately what we become is a resource provider. Just like Tom said, he had some guys that needed to do something, and he just, what do you need? So I can help you, and we become a resource provider to help them grow.
Mark, I know you're really big on mentor and mentoring. Could you just give us a moment on that?
I think everybody should have a mentor. I have a couple mentors that I go to. They're not even involved in our industry. And then I mentor 3 other business people now that I meet with them every 2 weeks, and we go over a number of different things. I kind of let them drive what they're looking for. And then based upon what they're looking for, then I'll deliver what I think is best for them. And so it's been very fun doing it, because they're younger individuals with some great businesses. And, I can see where they've made some mistakes, and I'll confront them on some of the stuff. And some of it was, you're in a market that you probably shouldn't be in, and this is why. And you just don't want to admit to yourself that you've made a mistake. And so, but yeah, I love mentoring. So I was at a career day yesterday with about 100 high school students. So it was a great time. I said I wasn't there to look to hire somebody. I was there to plant seeds. And, I don't care if they're air conditioning people, diesel mechanics, or whatever. Just, I was there just to, talk about the industry and the opportunities that's out there. It's an exciting time for young people if, for skills, that's for sure.
Yeah, if we help them understand the great opportunities that exist in this high-tech industry of ours. And, a lot of interesting things have happened to me in the last 24 hours as it comes to youth, and I hope to maybe try to get a podcast out of it, or at least not a blog, about independent shop owners getting a co-op program at a post-secondary school. Really kind of cool things going on in my world. And when you mentor or teach, you also learn. And I think that's something we all have to understand. And I bet you that's one of the big things that happens with you.
Yes. Yeah, I learn. So.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Super. Judi, you have the last word.
Well, of course. Well,
There's a joke in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, there is. If you know me, you absolutely get it. As I got to tell you, as Tom and Mark are talking, you're starting to say words, and I'm hearing them in my head. But as you're saying them, I'm thinking the exact same thing, and I love that. The fact that it's like, yep, oh yeah, I'm right there with you. So there's kind of 3 points. One, I think the most important thing is know your people. Know their strengths, know your strengths, and also it's okay to be wrong. We talked earlier about I'm an eagle, and I double, triple check everything because I don't like to be wrong. But there are times where I actually will be wrong because that's what needs to happen. You can't be practically Mary Poppins, practically perfect in every way. It's okay to make a mistake, and it's okay for your people to see that you've made a mistake. And how do you deal with that mistake is truly the lesson that you're teaching your people. Number 2, Tom, you talked about, it's so funny. I'm sitting in my office as you're saying this. I'm going, yeah, I'm thinking in my office. That's where I was. But you're doing so many different things. And somebody comes up and says, can you order coffee? Really? Can I order the coffee? I can order the coffee. So what I created was my sticky note is my friend program. And every time somebody asked me, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? And it was like, I can, but it's back to teach them how to fish. Don't just give them the food. So I would make a sticky note and I'd say, okay, coffee, who do I need to delegate that job to? Make sure they understand how they go online, where they go, and how do they get it. And I have to tell you, I haven't had to order coffee for several years now.
Success.
Yes, but along with, kind of as you said, who's keeping track, who's taking responsibility for whatever those jobs are. If something's broken or we need gloves this morning, we needed gloves, and I went, another sticky note. I need to find out who's going to be ordering those gloves because I haven't had to order them forever, but I'm actually filling in up front. So you need to know who you delegated to and how they could do it so that it takes it off your plate, which allows you to one of the third points is that working on leadership and being a leader. We are with ATI, and we've been with them for over 12 years, and I've got a phenomenal coach, George Zeeks, and probably a lot of people know who George is out there. But one of the things that he has always said is you, as a leader, as an owner of the business, you need to take time every single day and or week to think. And that means that you go in your office, you close the door, or on your drive. And that's not even in your drive home. It's really that you're in your office, and that's a job that needs to be on your calendar and your schedule, and you're thinking. You are thinking, and or as Mark said, you're training, you're learning something. But that time to think, you clear your head out of all the other problems or whatever, and you say, okay, are we on track? Are we going the right way? What else do we need to be doing? And in my life, I'm always looking to improve. What's the next step, and where do we need to be going? So take time to think.
Good stuff, everyone. Inspiring Town Hall Academy today. Talent management, developing your leadership team was our topic. And Judi Haglin was here from Haglin Automotive, Boulder, Colorado. Mark Roberts, Schertz Automotive, Schertz, Texas. And Tom Palermo, Preferred Automotive Specialists, Philadelphia. Great weekend, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.